Welcome to episode 2 of March Malcontent. Our first match is going to be Meta Knight against King K. Rool. Anyone who doesn't know what's going on, I recommend checking out the last video or videos from previous years. Last time that we did cover a lot of the basics of what's going on. Doesn't mean we get to talk a little bit more about the matches this time. With, of course, the average blend of Smash Brothers factoids and data you might find interesting. Combo I'd never considered right there, Meta Knight's down throw to up B combo. Usually you wait to use his up B, it's called shuttle loop, when the opponent's at a high percent because it is one of Meta Knight's better kill options. He doesn't go for it again though. The amiibo don't usually have too many combos hard-coded into them. Went over a little bit of that last time. K. Rool's belly armor right there coming into play. For anyone who doesn't know, a lot of K. Rool's attacks that feature his belly usually get to use this thing called belly armor. And what it does is it basically splits the damage K. Rool would have taken between him and his belly, with the main difference being that the belly armor isn't K. Rool's like normal percentage. One thing to watch out for though is that if it does take enough damage, it will break and put you into what is essentially a shield break state, which means that your opponent basically gets a free smash attack, or if you're low, then they'll probably just start their best combo. And by low, I mean low on percentage. Right there. Oh. K. Rool just showed off some moves that have the aforementioned belly armor. His forward tilt does because he sticks his stomach out first, and then that taunt specifically. We usually haven't seen K. Rool taunt much, if ever, now that I think about it. Granted, since his taunt does have the armor, it is technically slightly useful. You don't really see it that much because you are still probably going to get hit. However, it is better than the other taunts that simply do not have a practical gameplay function. If you're, playing with friends, then the mental damage they deal can be quite entertaining. There's some great text going on there. That being said, ever since they made in Smash Ultimate, they made it so every taunt that doesn't have a hitbox at least can be cancelled, which has kind of reduced their efficacy, since the main point of taunts originally was that it put you into an animation you could not cancel yourself out of, kind of the ultimate form of disrespect. But now that you can cancel them on a dime, it's really just a slightly flashier version than just like standing still. And as a result, you don't really see taunts come out ever, because they're not really seen as the disrespect of I don't need to do anything for the next 3 seconds and I can prove it. Now it's just I felt like taunting. I was not counting stocks there. I thought that Meta Knight still had one more. That's a really quick victory for King K. Rool. And for a second match, we've got Wii Fit Trainer against Baytwotta. Something you may have noticed is that Baytwotta looks a little bit different. That's because this is actually a separate Baytwotta amiibo. I realized that, while I originally didn't plan on collecting duplicates for every fighter, there were only 4 fighters that had 2 different figurines made, not including Pokemon Trainer, who basically needs 4 of them. So I realized that if I wanted to collect all the duplicates, it was just 4 extra, and like 2 of them were on sale, so I picked some of those up. So that's something to watch out for when you're predicting tournaments. Well, I guess when you're making your bracket in the next month or 2. Not 2. 2's gonna be too long. Any fighter, usually the ones from Smash 4 who received multiple figurines, so Corrin, Cloud, Baytwotta, and one more I can't remember at this exact moment, if I'm counting correctly, will have multiple fighters. So I've given them different amiibo nicknames so that you can tell them apart. Wii Fit Trainer almost getting bayoneted there. So that's why this amiibo is called Baytwotta, because I wanted to call it like Bayonet 2 or like some punny version of that until I realized that Bayonetta literally has the word 1 in her name. So if I would have called her Bayonettu, then it would have been spelled out B-A-Y-1-2. Which, I mean, if someone else wants to do, they can, but I figured that would be pretty confusing, especially when you're trying to keep track of them. For convenience, the original Bayonetta, which is a physically Bayonetta 1 amiibo, has a Bayonetta 1 skin, and the Bayonettu, or Baytwotta, if that's a little hard to pronounce, is a physical Bayonetta 2 amiibo, because she has different hairstyles in the 2 different games. So in-game she also has the Bayonetta 2 skin. Alright, all that talking, and Bayonetta actually died first. Wii Fit Trainer, it looks like, is on cooldown from Deep Breathing. For anyone who doesn't know, Deep Breathing is a very strong buff you can give. Well, if you could give it to any character, it would be absolutely broken. Wii Fit Trainer is at least balanced around it. However, after you initiate it the first time, that's really low. Makes it back. After you initiate it the first time, it does go on a cooldown where you can still try to activate it again, but it takes a lot longer to activate. So that you can't just spam it. I mean, already the buff is amazing. It heals you for like 1 or 2% every time you do it. And since Wii Fit Trainer is a character who very much excels while being off stage, camping out and getting a deep breathing buff every 12 seconds would be just a little too oppressive. Getting punched with a gigantic fist, not taking Wii Trainer out for the fight though. She's already shown that she can recover when she's that low on the screen. For anyone who can't seem to recover as high as Wii Fit Trainer, if you press B while you've got the hula hoops out, you go higher. And by press B, I mean use it more than just like once, like tap B a couple of times, kind of as if you have to maintain hula hoops. It's almost like they put lore into this game. Those were all forward airs from Bayonetta. Bayonetta has a 3-stage forward air. Not many other characters actually have that sort of thing. Usually it'll be like in a side tilt that has multiple iterations of it, so if you press A you get the second hit of the move. The only other character I can think of who has multi-hit aerials is actually Sora. You know, the last character added in the game. So for a while, Bayonetta had that unique to her. Using the command input of the side special, she was able to grab the stage so it didn't kill her. For anyone who doesn't know, the command input is basically just a little certain inputs you have to do with the joystick before you use the move. But instead of just pressing side B, you roll the controller from the bottom position into the diagonal position and then side position of whichever way you want to use it. And that's how you get Bayonetta to use her side B like downwards at an angle instead of slightly upwards, but mostly horizontal. Playing around on this top platform, it's pretty dangerous for Wii Fit Trainer. Bayonetta is pretty low, so she's going to be fine. If that had been like an up smash, it would have killed Wii Fit Trainer, or a forward smash facing the other way. Like that, what do you know, it killed Wii Fit Trainer, as the prophecy foretold. The Wii Fit Trainer doesn't seem to be charging up any sun salutations. That's a shame because, oh, alright, well, these amiibo can't hear me, but you'd think they could based off of that interaction. It's a good move to charge up because first of all it gets stronger, and secondly, at the fully strength version, you actually heal just a little bit when you do it. So camping out and throwing those is doubly efficient because you get damage on your opponent, but you can also heal just a little bit yourself. A combo I've never seen before, neutral air to forward smash. It just barely hit. That might be percentage dependent, and I wouldn't be surprised if Wii Fit Trainer could have actually air dodged out of it. Another forward smash. Bayonetta does have some big, hefty smash attacks. Only going for one hit of the forward air, though. Down smash is going to end Wii Fit Trainer's life. Baytwotta is going to move on. You'll see her in April Anger. Next on the menu, Wolf against Young Link. Two amiibo we have seen before. Something that occurred to me after that last match is that any amiibo that are new this year, which there aren't as many, simply because after so many years of doing this, we've gotten a large majority of them, is that any amiibo who happen to win their first match, you only get to see one match of how they play. Granted, it's really hard to predict who's going to win any specific match just based off of seeing them. Sometimes I'm sure there's going to be a very high difference in amiibo capability. Wolf is just throwing out up smashes perpetually. I don't think I specifically taught him that ever. It is something to mention is that when training these amiibo, if they did seem to struggle with any particular aspect, I did try to teach them things that would help them be successful. For example, if they had a hard time killing, I usually tried to teach them to use more smash attacks. If they struggled to shield, I tried to teach them more grabs, stuff like that. Most of the amiibo didn't have specific problems with any of those specific things. And I'm sure part of it too comes with playstyle. I would actually fight them in normal matches to train them. Which, if you're ever trying to put an amiibo into like an official amiibo competition, that's something that I recommend you don't do, because you need to train them to do specific things at specific frequencies. Simply because sometimes the amiibo will, for example, have a hard time dealing with a certain move or a certain type of move. And if your character has a really good one of those, or a couple of good ones of those, then you can just sort of spam those endlessly because the amiibo can't really adapt to it. Anyways, over the course of the battle, I would of course try to, win. And the amiibo would consequently adapt. Granted, as a human player, I was at certain disadvantages. For example, with all the extra damage they were doing, I could shield a lot fewer attacks. Not every attack would be a guaranteed shield break, however, instead of being able to shield 4 or maybe 5 attacks, it was usually cut down to like 1 or 2. Granted, one of the results of this is that the amiibo don't seem to dodge too often, which sounds really bad when you say it like that. But if they were, first of all, if they were spot dodging and rolling endlessly, that would be just terrible to watch. But secondly, if you're training the amiibo to be successful, you actually want them to do things like hit attacks, which is probably a better focus to have. Since if all they're good at is dodging, they are going to get hit at some point and then die. Whereas if they are good at killing the opponent before they themselves die, that sounds like a recipe for success. This is all to say that it is quite possible that Wolf has a very high value for using his up smash, probably because with whatever characters I was playing against him, it probably worked out pretty well, especially with it being a multi-hit move. It probably was doing very good at killing me. One of the more niche things in Smash Ultimate is that whenever you're in a 1v1, there is a slight damage multiplier applied to all of your moves, which kind of does help keep up the pace of the game. It's a great decision, I'm glad they put it in. Hazardous recovery by Young Link. And that's already going to kill him. Anyways, the point of thing is that multi-hits have extra damage applied to it. The normal damage isn't applied directly to the knockback of the move itself. With multi-hits, you get that slight extra damage dealt before you deal the knockback, which means that multi-hits on very strong attacks in 1v1 mode, especially if you're Spirit Boosted like Amiibo, become even more stronger. Alright, Mewtwo against Olimar. Legendary Pokemon versus guy the size of a bug. But this is Smash Bros, so whatever happens, happens. Poor Pikmin getting slaughtered within the first 6 seconds of the match. Olimar can pluck more out of the ground, but it always hurts you in the emotions to have one of your Pikmin die. Olimar with a really late tech there. He could have used a move to cancel out of his tumble animation. Instead, he decided to go for the tech. Getting an early spike though, so maybe things aren't as bad as I thought. So Olimar's Pikmin do have immunities to certain types of attacks based off of the color of the Pikmin, how fitting. For example, red Pikmin are immune to damage from fire attacks. This is interesting because I don't know what Mewtwo's attacks, or at least the majority of them, count as. Some of them, you know, where he like hits you with his tail, like right there. That's just physical damage, and none of Olimar's Pikmin have immunity to that. Granted, if they ever made another Smash game and they could include other Pikmin for Olimar, like the new Rock Pikmin, the Ice Pikmin, and stuff like that, they probably could justify one of the types being immune to blunt force trauma. But anyways, since Mewtwo uses a whole bunch of psychic energy attacks, and some just shadow energy attacks, which I learned very recently usually count as fire attacks, even though internally in the game's files, they're just called purple attacks. For any given attack, I can't tell you what it counts as. I can only guess between, well, the two we already talked about. And, you know, maybe some of them are going to be allocated differently. Olimar's having a very hard time recovering. So when Olimar recovers using his up special, he has two winged Pikmin fly him, preferably like to the ledge. The thing is that he flies slower with however many Pikmin he's holding. He has so far been able to just barely grab the ledge each time, so he hasn't died for it. However, with the weight penalty of the Pikmin you have, and as a side note, purple Pikmin count as even more of a weight penalty. And probably to make up for the fact that, you know, in the games they're just absolutely amazing. So you can recover further even if you're already off stage by throwing away some of your Pikmin and then recovering. Just the weight penalty they apply is that significant. However, Olimar hasn't been doing this, so he's been recovering with his entire Pikmin squad and just barely making it every time, which I feel like is probably going to get him killed at least once this match. Getting a backer on Mewtwo, who I just noticed is on his last stock. I must have been monologuing too much again. So Mewtwo has to play this pretty safe in order to win, if assuming that's something Mewtwo wants to do. I assume so, because that's the point of any amiibo. And an up smash is just gonna do it right there. The purple Pikmin up smash. It's a little bit stronger than with other Pikmin. Honestly, it's a whole table of characteristics to know. And here we've got Fox against Villager. Villager being a character who definitely excels at long ranges, having multiple projectiles, and it's not a reflector, so to speak. The pocket ability lets him pick up projectiles and use them for later. Fox is a lot more, I wouldn't say exactly rushdown, but he definitely excels within punching distance. It's kind of why he actually has a reflector to help him get there. Honestly, I think a lot of it will come down to how often Fox is going to use that reflector. Granted, we have barely seen Villager use any projectiles this game. Oh, there's two. The amiibo actually have a specific value for when to use reflectors if they have one, which Fox barely makes it. Villager textbook gets stuck with the balloon under stage. Not a good place to be in. Like, yes, you probably could have figured that out, but... yeah, this Villager is very much just punching Fox in the face. Normally more Villager gameplay, you see them a little farther away, throwing all of their great ranged options. And there we have it, Villager just threw a Lloyd Rocket and got it reflected right back at him. So maybe it wasn't exactly a bad plan for him to do that. The using physical attacks, not the getting the rocket reflected. The good old down tilt to jump up at the opponent and air dodge. A risky combo. Fun fact about Villager and his balloons up special is that the balloons actually change colors depending on what player slot he's in. And interesting about that with the amiibo, however, is that, you know, if you're player 1, I believe the player color is red, so Villager would have red balloons. Player 2 gets blue balloons. there's 8 colors, one for every slot. Computers get the gray color, because in the Smash Bros. Series, whenever there's a computer player, it doesn't bother using a color, it just gives them all gray. There is actually an interesting design side of that, in that if you've got players and computers, the computers always know which one is theirs. The players don't have to exactly care, they just need to know it's not theirs. So it's usually fine if all the computers use gray. And they have. I will say that specifically if you're on a team with a computer and someone gets something like an assist trophy or a very impactful Pokeball, I can't believe Fox made that. It can be a little tricky to tell if a particular Pokemon or assist trophy is actually on your team or not, because it will just show up as gray. Anyways, that side note, the amiibo, they actually get the special coloration. You can see it around the character portraits at the bottom of the screen. It's a gradient that goes from blue to yellow, with, you know, a little bit of green in between, so that's how colors work. A couple of reflects from Fox right there. The gradient color doesn't actually get applied to the computers, or I should say amiibos. The amiibos balloons when they're villager. Which, I do understand that would be another color to add. However, it always does feel a little bit weird to have the FP icon above everyone's heads not match in that one specific case, but match in all the others. Especially when you get things like when characters are getting launched, you can probably see that a little bit. They leave a trail of smoke behind them. The trail of smoke usually correlates with the player who launched the player who got launched. However, since these are amiibo, they're using the CPU coloration, because they don't have a specific amiibo gradient for that either. I can't imagine how hard it would be to apply gradient to a smoke trail. And Fox, oh, he is going to make it, going for the lower ledge. So in all these amiibo battles, you're going to see a whole bunch of gray smoke going everywhere. Whereas normally in 1v1, you're going to see red and blue for player 1 and player 2. Or if someone's really particular, they could pick, you know, like player 7 if they really wanted, for example, orange. Fox is going to make that again as well. He's always recovering from the absolute limit of his recovery. I mean, it did mess up Villager right there. Villager getting stuck under the stage again! Well, good job, Fox. Through your brilliance or through Villager's ineptitude, you're making it to the tournament. And here we've got Byleth against Link. Yet another instance this video of, unfortunately, the amiibos having matching color palettes. You should be able to figure it out, though. Byleth has a cape and just a whole bunch of incredibly long pointies, whereas Link excels in having just a whole bunch of different equipment on him. Which I guess both characters do to an extent, but Byleth has 4 weapons, and Link usually is carrying 20 or 30. Depending, you know, on what game you're playing. If you're playing Breath of the Wild, then he's got like 4. And that is an unfortunate air dodge Link is not going to be able to recover from. Just like how a real player would do it. Is able to make that one back, even though the platform began to rise out of the way. It is unfortunate that we got the same stage twice in a row. There's, I think, like 30 stages on the stage rotation I've picked, so I guess it was going to happen eventually. I guess you could say it would happen 1 in 30 times. But just for visual variety, it's always nice to have different stages. Link trying to go for a ledge trump, however, if you input any sort of like option to get back on the stage, whether it's like ledge jump or ledge roll or just neutral get up, then even if someone else grabs the ledge, your character will still get onto the stage normally, even though they normally would be pushed off by the extra player. Alright, Link needs to get his first kill here. Byleth is at a high percent that will help Link, especially because after such an early death he suffered from, it should mean that he's able to keep ahead of Byleth in the pace of the game, but now he's only about 30% ahead, and that's a lot less of a difference. Okay, they just kind of had a little fight club there in the corner. Up B is not going to kill Byleth. It is going to send her off stage. Her recovery's, I was going to say just long enough, but with her recovery, the sword actually gets astoundingly long. Jump off the ledge, back air. I never considered that as a kill option for Link, but I guess it works. Dancing around on this top right platform, Byleth is just playing incredibly passive. I guess you can afford to when the opponent's at such a higher percentage than you. You only need to find one clean hit, whereas the opponent needs to find like 20. And down smash at the ledge is going to kill Link. Link actually used a sword beam there. Something that's new for Smash Ultimate is that if Link is at 0%, whenever he uses a smash attack, the little sword beams will come. They're not particularly amazing, and you do have to be basically on a fresh life in order for it to activate, but it's nice. It's, you know, something extra. Shows that the developers care. If anything, it means the Smash Brothers developers care about the sword beams more than the developers of Breath of the Wild. So I'm not including Tears of the Kingdom in this, just because I haven't gotten the opportunity to play it yet. I've been doing stuff like this. I know, my video games are getting in the way of playing other video games. But in Breath of the Wild, if you do absolutely every shrine, you get a costume that makes your Master Sword beams do and that's gonna kill Link. Anyways, the costume lets you do slightly extra damage on your sword beams, which you probably weren't using anyway. Byleth moves on. Alright, Piranha Plant against Pichu. Gonna be a tough match for Pichu, specifically because Piranha Plant isn't, you know, the heaviest of characters. He does kind of have a lot of heavyweight characteristics, and some of those are that some of his attacks are very strong and can kill early. Pichu, being the lightest character in the game, can die early. And of course, Pichu's strongest trait as a character is usually long and extensive combos that really help build up damage on the opponent, but that is something the amiibo kind of always suffer with just a little bit. Granted, it's looking like in Smash Ultimate's balancing that the balancing team, because it's no longer just Sakurai, which apparently it used to be. Surprisingly not a Thunder there. That probably could have killed Piranha Plant. The balancing team mostly seems to go off of online win percentage, and one of the quirks of online is that you are liable to lag spikes, which will absolutely mess up Pichu and Pikachu's, I guess, as well, recovery. So I feel like they got off a little bit stronger than they normally otherwise would have been, just because players who have worse internet connections have a tendency of SDing with the character. Overall, it's not absolutely oppressive. I mean, Pichu was able to score the first kill here, so maybe my prediction is going to be completely wrong. I guess there's a 50-50 chance that it is. Forward smash barely not killing Pichu, able to hold on. Able to recover, has to use a side B, which will add just a little bit of percentage. But getting hit by Piranha Plant's back air, and at that high percent, I don't think the extra 1.2 recoil damage is going to make that much of a difference. Yes, you heard that right. Pichu deals recoil damage. It's just a little bit, however, it is noticeable. Mostly it means that when you're Pichu, you just can't throw out garbage moves that you know are never going to hit, because you're just going to damage yourself for doing so. And as the lightest character in the game, you can't afford to take any more damage than you have to. Part of the reason why it's like that is because Pichu actually was a character who hasn't been in games since Super Smash Bros. Melee, when apparently Pichu was supposed to be a joke character. A character thrown in the game just to have a laugh. The thing is, though, is that in fighting games, sometimes that will become a player's... Ooh, nice spike from Piranha Plant. Sometimes that will become a player's genuine favorite character, and it always really hurts when your favorite character is someone the developers decided to just be terrible to have a laugh at. So for Smash Ultimate, they actually made Pichu better and actually a good character, you know, depending on how you define good, but Pichu is usable and can do things, and it's great. Unless, I suppose, if you hate Pichu, but I don't know too many people who would. I mean, have you seen Pichu? He's adorable. Now, Pichu does have a little bit to make up here. One of the symptoms of these being amiibo, I hope Pichu is able to make that with a basically max range recovery. Anyways, the symptoms of these being amiibo is that they do have auto heal. However, Pichu does deal self-damage, and it often tends to overshadow the auto heal. Piranha Plant's going to escape the combo with an up air and win the game. Last match of the video, we're going to have Ken against Steve. Well, I guess the amiibo name is Stever. We talked about this earlier in the video, but let's say you just jumped to this timestamp. Some of the amiibo have more than one figurine, and one of those is actually Steve. There's a Steve and an Alex amiibo. So this is technically an Alex amiibo. In terms of Smash Brothers, it doesn't change anything, but it can mean for the tournament it can get a little confusing if you don't know what's going on. So I made sure to give them, well, kind of as different skins as I could manage. If anyone remembers, normal Steve is just like the Steve with a kilt. So Stever is a zombie. And funny enough, the announcer actually has different voice lines, even though it's basically the same character. The reason why Steve is called Stever, because I wanted to call it Steve 2, but then I realized that if anything ever happens in the future and they make a third Steve amiibo for whatever reason, then I could have Steve, Stever, and Stevist, and I think that would be hilarious. But for now, we're just going to leave it with Steve and Stever. Each Steve more Steve than the last. Each Steve more Stever than the last. There we go. Can't wait for them to release the Witchest 3. Alright, enough puns aside, let's get to the match. So, Steve did actually just lose one of his weapons, and he's crafted another set, so that's and he finds a diamond and then crafts that immediately. Alright, I'm just gonna stop talking about his weapons. Thankfully, the amiibo AI does know that it needs to mine every once in a while so it doesn't run out of resources. However, I do feel like the Steve amiibo has more of a... If Steve fell out of that? Yeah, that probably would have killed him if he didn't, so that's quite the turnaround. Steve, in, like, tournament play, usually they don't tend to run out of resources. The amiibo has a slight more tendency of doing that. Granted, I feel like that's also because the real people, when they play, they have a habit of just excessively mining the whole game until they find a diamond, and then they engage the opponent when they're at their absolute strongest, instead of at any other point in the game. It kind of caused some problems with the tournament scene, because it meant that Steve just kind of ran away for forever until he got his good stuff, and then he started playing the game. There were some other problems going along, too. He actually got banned from tournament play because of a specific glitch he can do, which is weird because I would think he'd be banned because he actually has a 0 to death. Yes, that's right, he has a combo that if he hits you with it, he can kill you off of it, no matter, well, usually if you're at 0%. Like, obviously it's not too surprising to be able to kill someone off of a combo if they're at like 120, that's actually pretty standard. Nice combo from Ken, killing Steve at just under 120. And sometimes the 0% death combos are specific enough that if the opponent starts at 30%, you just can't do it. So one of the cool things about Smash Brothers is that you do have to keep track of your opponent's damage percentage when you're trying to do some certain combos. Whereas in traditional fighters, like Street Fighter, where Ken's from, once you hit the opponent, you can do the same combo every single time. It does I think it actually makes Smash Brothers more complex of a fighting game. It's really hard to say that one game is Ken gonna win that. He does. I'm not saying that traditional fighters aren't complex. They're definitely complex in different ways. Although they are usually ways that are less beginner-friendly, such as not being able to use a special move because you haven't practiced the input for it. Whereas in Smash Brothers, with the exception of characters like Ken, who are from traditional fighter games. You can use all of your moves by just knowing how a basic Smash Bros. Character plays. And of course, with like Ken's command inputs, ooh, he doesn't seem to know the shield break combo. I don't think there's a way I could teach it to him. And he jumps into the late hit of the up smash and dies for it. Alright, well, that conversation is going to be cut short. I guess I've been rambling a lot this episode anyway. Stever is going to be making it to April Anger. I hope you enjoyed this video. We've got, well, I don't have anyone helping me with this at the time. I've got other videos if you're interested, preferably ones in the 2024 March Malcontent series. I feel like that would probably be in your best interest. Either way, I hope you have a great time, and I'll see you in the next video.